So then, US President Donald Trump has cancelled the trip by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner to Pakistan. The White House had confirmed their planned visit on Friday as part of efforts to end the war in Iran. Trump says any deal with Iran must guarantee that they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
They gave us a paper that should have been better. And interestingly, immediately when I canceled it, within 10 minutes, we got a new paper that was much better.
What was on that paper, sir?
We talked about they will not have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. Look, that whole deal is not complicated. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple.
Is the ceasefire remaining? Will you continue to ceasefire?
Haven't even thought about it yet.
Did they offer anything in return to 20 years of suspending enriched uranium?
They offered a lot.
What did they offer?
They offered a lot, but not enough. Thank you.
Well, an Iranian delegation led by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is now in Oman discussing regional developments there. Earlier on Saturday, his team was in Pakistan, where they left a workable framework to be communicated by Pakistani officials on ending the war. Iranian media says Araghchi is expected to return to Islamabad before heading to Russia. All right, we've got correspondents covering the story from Tehran and from Washington, D.C., and we'll begin with Manuel Rapello in Washington, D.C., the U.S. capital. So, Manuel, just tell us what more the U.S. president had to say.
Good to be with you, Nick. President Trump was asked about this alleged meeting on Tuesday. He was asked about a document that was reportedly left by the Iranians for the Americans in Pakistan. President Trump did not give too many details about the specifics of this document or of this format. He also didn't really confirm whether or not there was an exchange of a formal document. Instead, like you heard just now in your introduction there from President Trump himself, he says we're not going to spend 15 hours in airplanes all the time going back and forth to be given a document that was not good enough. That's what President Trump had said regarding that document left by the Iranians in Islamabad. It's hard to know sometimes if President Trump is being facetious or not, but he also said that part of the reason why this trip was canceled was because he is a quote-unquote cost-conscious person, and that this trip would have been very expensive. What we're not hearing, and this is an important thing to underline here, is that there is still diplomacy taking place behind the scenes. That's what President Trump is signaling. He's signaling that the United States is not working off Iran's paper, but there is still movement taking place behind the scenes. It's signaling that whatever is happening in the near future is not concrete enough to justify the president sending two of his top aides, in this case, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, to Islamabad if he doesn't expect that this is going to yield something meaningful in terms of U.S. interests. Also, the signaling here is that the diplomatic window is still open. So what President Trump is saying, in his own words, is that if the Iranians want to talk, all they have to do is call.
All right, let's get the view from Tehran now with Al-Migdad Al-Ruhaid. So tell us, first of all, the foreign minister, he said he shared a workable framework to permanently end the war. And Donald Trump said that, in fact, another document had also been provided by the Iranians, which was much better, as he put it. Do we know anything about both these documents?
Yeah, let me start by this workable framework that Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi spoke about. Actually, we don't have the details that publicly or officially published, but we do have the bigger picture, the broader picture from Iran's, at least from the past previous proposals and stance, especially when it comes to the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. We know that the United States naval blocking the Strait of Hormuz, blocking the Iranian ports, and also imposing between the Araghchi Navy and between the U.S. Navy that there is an escalation back and forth, especially when it comes to the vessels belonging to the Iranians and vessels also belonging to Israel and United States Navy. So the bigger picture that the blockade is one of the main sticking points over the past few days, and if we step back and see also the 10-point plan that proposed by Iranian, we see that Iranian is sticking at their rights on especially when it comes to uranium program and handing the stockpile of the enriched uranium, and also the sanctions. The sanctions, one of the main pressuring that imposed by the United States over the past decades. We know that these sanctions, Iranians demand to be lifted and also demand to be ease for ease the economic crisis and economic pressure here inside Tehran. At the same time, we know that Abbas Araghchi is supposed to visit Islamabad again after his visit to Oman earlier this day, and also after that will head to Moscow, and some of his team right now is in Tehran for consultation over this workable framework. The bigger picture is that there is a huge gap between two proposals, between the framework that handed by Abbas Araghchi to the mediator and also from United States. But the speculation that this ongoing wheel of diplomacy between both sides will ease this deadlock, or sometimes some analyst is saying that whether will be another breakthrough or another round of deadlock between the two sides.
OK. Well, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has affirmed his country's commitment to advance durable peace and lasting stability as talks between the US and Iran stall. Let's hear now from Al Jazeera's Osama bin Javed, who has a view from Islamabad on Pakistan's mediation efforts.
The barriers are being removed from here in the red zone in Islamabad, which about 2 weeks has remained a complete no-go area for people. This is because of the latest that we've heard from the US president, who's announced that he's calling back his envoys. There was hope that they are going to continue this dialogue here in Islamabad with Pakistani officials, and they are going to hold talks, although the Iranians never confirmed that there will be any talks here in Islamabad face-to-face with the American. It was a day with a flurry of activity where there have been phone calls in the last 24 hours between the Pakistanis and the Iranians, the Pakistanis and the Egyptians, the Pakistanis and the Russians. The Iranian foreign minister concluding a long discussion with Pakistan, then headed to Muscat in Oman, and onwards he's expected to go to Moscow. We've been told by various diplomats that diplomacy is not dead, despite the setback that has come here. Although Islamabad has again come back to life, but it appears that the Pakistanis have not given up hope in the whole peace process. It is going to take time. We've been told that diplomacy is not an event but a process, and that process continues behind closed doors. It will be now a wait-and-see process on how the Iranians react to the latest statement by the US president to pick up the phone and call him if they need to talk, and also by the Pakistani government, which is still hopeful that there is going to be a second round of talks. When, how, and under what circumstances is the question. Osama bin Javed, Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
Back to Washington, D.C. Manuel Rapallo is there. And Manuel, something else we heard from the US president, there seems to be the suggestion of a potential meeting on Tuesday. Any further elaboration?
President Trump was asked about this as well. He spoke about it, but again, it's hard to tell sometimes if President Trump is being strategically withholding too much information and without trying to overanalyze what President Trump was sort of signaling here. He did not offer too much in terms of detail over this meeting that is supposed to take place on Tuesday. What we are likely to see in terms of the negotiations themselves is the third-party intermediaries here, the mediators, like Pakistan, carrying a lot of the burden of passing along communications and documents and suggestions between the two sides of this argument. There is militarily, we can also expect the United States to continue the U.S. naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and beyond the Strait of Hormuz that's targeting all Iranian maritime activity, which means that the United States is going to continue to pressure Iran, both militarily and economically. So again, right now, there's no timeline exactly as to when the talks themselves are going to resume. What we can expect is that negotiators will continue to be working through back channel options and not the traditional framework of diplomacy that we're used to seeing at times like these, in times of conflict. And right now, we can expect U.S. diplomats, more than anything else, to focus on taking advantage of that ongoing ceasefire between the United States and Iran to prevent anything that could sort of interrupt that fragile ceasefire and put the United States and Iran back on the path toward an open conflict. Right now, it's taking advantage of that ongoing ceasefire, and there is a lot of urgency because the longer it takes for these talks to end this stall, for these talks to continue, the higher the risk of a scenario like that playing out.
All right, Manny, thanks for that. Manuel Rapello there in Washington, D.C. Let's head back to Tehran now, to Al-Mighdad. So, Al-Mighdad, Iran under serious pressure, the Iranians under serious pressure, more than ever, economically. You wonder how much the country, the people can take, given the U.S. blockade.
Yes, definitely. This blockade over the Strait of Hormuz is one of the main issues affecting the oil exports and also affecting the trades and access to the global market over the past few weeks. And also we know that Iran is under pressure, economic pressure, even before this war started. You know, there is a huge economic crisis before this war started. Right now, we are seeing this pressure inside markets, higher prices in currency, difficulties in access to the global market, and also there is an uncertainty, especially when it comes to business owner, to the finance, to also to the entrepreneur, and also to whole economic sector here inside Iran. So this blockade making another pressure on domestic economic, and also for the ordinary people. This phase of no peace, no war, and uncertainty, making them very hard to plan to next day, even can't plan for a week or for finance or for anything that in the near future. So blockade is pressuring more, but we know that Iranian officials saying that we know how to deal with this. We know how to deal with sanctions for decades before. So calling this is a resistance economy. So the picture is clear. There is economic pressure, but at the same time, officials saying that they know how to deal with this economic pressure imposed by the United States over the Strait of Hormuz and blocking the Iran export and import ports over the sea.
All right, that's the current picture in Tehran, the capital of Iran. Al-Mighdad Al-Ruhayd, thank you for that. So let's take this on now with Mark Kimmett, retired US General and former Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs. General Kimmett, welcome once again. Yep. How do you view, given everything that we've been hearing in the last few hours, how do you view the potential for negotiations now?
Well, I think everybody needs to take a breather after this weekend. It's clear that both sides want to negotiate, both sides want to talk, both sides want to get the Strait of Hormuz open. So now we just need to get probably the best asset we have, which is the Pakistani intermediaries, to bring them back together, hopefully sooner rather than later.
It seems that the Iranians, they're not yet prepared to meet the US delegation, but the effort is being made by the foreign minister. He's been to Islamabad, hasn't he? He's now in Oman. He's heading back to Islamabad before heading to Moscow. So there is this back and forth.
Yeah, the question, of course, is who is giving the foreign minister the instructions?
Right.
Somebody has given him a list of things to do and his left and right limits, and we'll just have to wait and see. I think the best way to track this is Araghchi's actual physical presence. So let's just watch to see what happens.
What about the issue of trust between the two sides, on both sides? And certainly from the Iranians' point of view, they struggle with this, don't they, given that they've been bitten twice in negotiations and have been attacked during negotiations. So there's this level of distrust that needs to be overcome, doesn't it?
I think trust is overrated in negotiations.
Well, good faith, then, put it that way.
I think in many ways, good faith is overrated in negotiations. The fact remains that this is all about interests. Each country has interests, each country has goals, and the purpose of negotiation is not to appeal to emotions like trust is to appeal to interests, which are solid and determinate issues that can bring the two sides together and come to some sort of resolution. I mean, if you take a look at situations such as Ukraine and Russia, certainly there's no trust there, but they're certainly trying to do their best to find a middle ground. They haven't been successful. Hopefully, we'll see Iran and the U.S. be more successful.
Donald Trump, the U.S. president, says that the United States holds all the cards. Is that true, do you think?
I think we hold most of the cards. It's certainly not the case that we hold all the cards.
All right. So in what sense do the Iranians, what power do they have in their grasp then?
Oh, I think we've seen their power. Their power is their ballistic missile program that they have rained on this region. Their power is their proxy program, which has carried out assassinations throughout the region. And in our case particular, hundreds of Americans died from the IEDs that their Iranian Revolutionary
But I mean,
Guards
as
bought.
far as this particular war is concerned.
Well, they certainly do, at this point, own the Strait of Hormuz. They're half owners of the Strait of Hormuz with the United States. The United States could pull their ships off tomorrow, and the Iranians would still be demanding tribute for ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So that is an asset they have.
We heard from the U.S. Secretary of War, of Defense, talking about, Pete Hegseth, talking about how much time the United States has in this.
Yep.
Is that true, do you think? Is there unlimited time for the U.S.?
There is not unlimited time for either side, but it is clear that one of the revolutionary ideals in a war of resistance is the notion of resistance and the notion of patience. And I think what Hegseth is trying to say is, as we've seen so often in places such as Afghanistan and elsewhere, where the old expression is, you may have the watches, but we have the time. I think he's trying to nullify that belief on the part of the Iranians that they can wait us out.
All right. Jeremy, can we leave it there for now? Thanks very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you.